are the same words that he used, but there's no evidence of that at all. That would be a conspiracy theory. Sunstein will claim that he's acting with the best intentions, trying to dispel falsehoods and spread the truth. You're just spreading, lies, right? I think he's spreading the truth using lies. This is nothing short of propaganda. For the regular audience, the last administration to do this, the last one to recruit goons on soapboxes and just start grabbing a bullhorn and preaching the government's good news as an average citizen spontaneously, get this, was this guy. I hate this guy. Sorry, I take that back. I dislike the things he does, or did. Woodrow Wilson. He created the Committee on Public Information. He eventually had tens of thousands of 4-minute men who gave 4-minute propaganda speeches designed to gain public support for the war. They were specifically screened based on their credibility in the community. It's weird. Learn history, you will know our future. You will also know how it ends, and you'll know how to defeat it so we can get back on the right track and be America again. Back in a minute.
A global fat tax to teach the banks a lesson. Next.
A few years ago, you'd be labeled a kook for suggesting that global taxes could be levied against Americans. No way. Today, the International Monetary Fund, an organization that offers policy advice to 186 member countries, says we need a global financial activities tax, FAT, a fat tax, on all banking and financial institutions. Oh, well, that doesn't affect you. This is what I talked about. I know I specifically lined this out at least a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Here's what's going to happen, I said back then. The cities are going to have so much financial debt, they're going to push it up to the states. The states won't be able to handle it. They'll push it up to the government. The federal government, it'll be such an out-of-control situation, it will be pushed up to the globe. Now we're considering the IMF's recommendation on the global taxation level. It is the opposite that needs to happen. Here we are staring directly into the face of economic collapse, and rather than returning to the principles, faith, hope, charity, self-reliance, accountability, instead of relying on those things that made us the most prosperous country on earth in the history of mankind, we're headed the opposite direction with giant government structure, right into socialism. The opposite direction, taxes and government intervention.
A culture of irresponsibility took root from Wall Street to Washington to Main Street. And a regulatory regime basically crafted in the wake of a 20th century economic crisis, the Great Depression, was overwhelmed by the speed, scope, and sophistication of a 21st century global economy. So today, my administration is proposing a sweeping overhaul of the financial regulatory system, a transformation on a scale not seen since the reforms that followed the Great Depression.
Reforms, believe me, that will lead to reforms that have never been seen at this scale ever in the history of mankind. Taxes and regulation will not lead us out of this crisis. The administration won't even discuss the real causes of the crisis. I mean, why hasn't anybody gone to jail? You know what? We're now, after all these months, we're now making Goldman Sachs the scapegoat. Look, I don't have any admiration. I don't have any love for Goldman Sachs. I don't really care. I think some of them are dirtbags. Some of them are probably good guys. But let's stop with the window dressing. Goldman Sachs is all of a sudden this evil entity. Who specifically? What did they do? Let's get the bad guys. Let's smoke them out. Everybody is focused on the nearly $1 million Obama received from Goldman Sachs during the campaign, whether he's going to give it back or not. First of all, of course he's not going to give it back. More importantly, who cares? Trillions of dollars are at stake. Trillions. Why is it that Goldman Sachs is the only target here? Why? Aren't there bigger culprits? Oh, I don't know. Maybe Fannie and Freddie? Huh? Even the all-knowing, all-seeing financial guru, Alan Greenspan, said this.
The failure of Fannie and Freddie was a major factor in the crisis.
Why isn't that entity in trouble? If Congress and the administration were concerned about the rule of law, there would have been arrests made at these institutions, not just some civil action against Goldman Sachs. And if Goldman Sachs is the main focus of the Democrats' ire, why did it take so long to do anything? Since the Bush years, our government has been inundated with Goldman Sachs executives. Goldman Sachs. Look at this. I mean, do you remember that cartoon on Saturday mornings, at least when I was growing up in the 70s, Hong Kong Phooey? Hong Kong Phooey could have cracked this case. This whole thing is about timing, and something's very, very wrong. Something else I've said repeatedly. Watch the other hand. Goldman Sachs, Goldman Sachs. What is this hand doing? We all hate the banks, right? Oh, we just hate them. May I show you how the banks are making their money? It's from the New York Times. They're borrowing the money that they need from the Fed at less than 1% interest. Got it? Sounds like a good deal. They borrow it from the Fed. Then who do they loan it to? The Treasury. You, the taxpayer. And they're charging the taxpayer 3%. Less than 1%, charging you 3%. That is a sweet racket, isn't it? All they're doing is taking money from one pocket for free, charging you to move it to the other pocket. This is the biggest scam in financial history. Well, maybe actually the second biggest scam, because the biggest scam might be this new FAT proposal, this new financial tax. We all know that if this tax is imposed, banks are not only going to simply absorb the financial losses that come with the new tax. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to pass it on to you, the consumer, global consumer. So if we succumb to this, and you know it'll be the first of many taxes globally, once this door is open, this planet is going to pour money into what? Into whom? Who has this money? What is this money for? Where do all these global taxes go? Let me tell you something. This planet will be enslaved unlike anything else before. This global financial structure that has been put in place can't and will not work. And I'll show you why next. The answer must be smaller, not global government. Smaller government, closer to you. And here's why. The global financial structure that we already have put into place can't and will not work because of mutually assured economic destruction. Please look this up. It wasn't done for these times. It was done for a good reason. It was a system put into place to assure that with the world's economies linked, no one would ever risk a world war again because it would destroy all of the economies. But now, with this system on the brink of collapse, not due to war, and they didn't even think of this, what about if the economy started to collapse because of global mismanagement, corruption, incompetence, greed? The countries are all tied together. Mutually assured economic destruction. Now our governments are having to rape the resources, rape their own people with taxes. They got to hold this global structure together any way they can, so they're raiding the global treasury. In every country, it's happening here. This is the last step before a collapse of an empire, except this time we're watching the whole globe. You'll be left with nothing. The elite few will have it. They've laid the tracks for a while. We've got to spit ourselves out of the system. It's going to take direct and dramatic action, but we also face vicious opposition from progressives who have worked hard to lay this foundation for more than a century. We must learn from history, and I'll give it to you every single night to my last breath. Back in a minute. The pledge that I gave you a little while ago from Martin Luther King, it's available at glennbeck.com, and I would urge you to go there, and we're going to have a sign-up sheet for it in the coming days, but I want you to see it. Gandhi said, use your truth as your anvil, nonviolence as your hammer, and anything that doesn't stand the test when it's brought to the anvil of truth and hammered with nonviolence, reject it. From New York, good night, America.